Hello, and welcome back to the Spiritual Sanctuary. I'm Bertina, priestess, spiritual coach, and yoga teacher, and I'm so happy to welcome you to our special series, International Week of Yoga. This is day 2 of the series. Yesterday, we explored the question of what is yoga. We talked about how yoga is much more than poses or stretching or exercises. And we explored yoga as a union and connection, and also, more importantly, a path of returning home to ourselves. So today, we're going to take a gentle journey into the history of yoga. And as many of you all know, I absolutely love history, but yogic history is it's deep. It's come from the beginning of time. It is ancient history. It spans thousands and thousands of years, many teachers, many lineages, sacred text. I mean, there's so much to really look into. And as most spiritual practices, there are several interpretations. So today, it's not meant to be like a complete academic lecture on every detail of yoga's history. That would take days, weeks, hours, months. But instead, I've tried to make this episode a beginner friendly, a respectful overview of yoga's ancient roots and then how yoga's evolved around time. So I'm hoping that by learning a little bit about yoga history that we can practice with more respect and humility and appreciate the wisdom of this ancient traditions that yoga has carried forward. Because like yoga did not start out as a fitness trend. It did not begin as a social media pose or a workout class. Yoga is has its ancient roots in India, and it's developed as a spiritual, philosophical, meditative, and an embodied path. And at its heart, yoga's always been connected to the search of truth and liberation, self-awareness, discipline, and union with the divine. The roots of yoga are traced back, as I've said before, to ancient India. And these early ideas that related to yoga appear in sacred texts such as the Vedas and the Upanishads. The Vedas are among the oldest sacred texts of India, and they contain hymns and rituals and prayers and spiritual teachings. Now, while yoga we know today was not fully formed in the Vedic period, we can see early seeds of spiritual practice, devotion, meditation, sacred sound, and connection with the spiritual world, with the divine. Then in the Upanishads, we begin to see deeper philosophical reflections on the self and the soul, ultimate reality and meditation, and even more spiritual knowledge. And these texts ask the questions: who am I? Why am I here? What's the nature of reality? What kind of relationship do I have with the divine? And how do I move beyond illusions and suffering? And these are the kinds of questions that live at the heart of yoga. So, from the beginning, yoga wasn't simply physical movements, it was connected to spiritual inquiry, and it's a way of seeking wisdom and discipline and liberation, and even a deeper union. Yoga at this time invited people to look inward, to still the mind, to study the self, and to understand the nature of suffering. This is why yoga has always been a practice of both inner and outer transformation. And one of the most important texts in the yoga tradition is the Bhagavad Gita. It's part of the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata, and it's written as a conversation between Prince Arjuna and Lord Krishna. The setting is a battlefield, but the deeper teaching is spiritual. Arjuna is struggling with fear, his duty, his confusion, moral conflict, and Krishna guides him through teachings about life, action, and devotion, wisdom, discipline, and spiritual truth. What I love about the Gita is that It shows us that yoga is not separate from life. It's not something that we do when everything is peaceful or when we're sitting in meditation. And it is, I guess, a way of how to meet difficulty and how we respond to responsibilities, how we act with integrity, and how we surrender and serve and love. And one of my favorites is how we seek wisdom. The Gita speaks of several paths of yoga, and we will spend a day discussing these more in depth. But the first one is karma. It's the yoga of action and selfless service. Now, this is not like Western yoga or Western karma, where we're like, oh, you do something and something bad's happen. No, it is teaching us to act with integrity, to serve without being attached to the outcome, and to offer our actions as sacred. Then there's bhakti yoga. It's the yoga of devotion. It's the path of love and prayer and surrender and chanting and devotion to the divine. It is one I love to practice. I do not get to practice often. It is not one that I lead. I am not gifted in that area in regards to being that advanced, but I practice and I love it. Then there is Jnana Yoga. It's the yoga of wisdom and knowledge. And we study and we search for the truth, whether it's in Indian books or sacred text or wherever. We seek to look and study and reflect on the truth. Then there's also the path of meditation and discipline, which is the Raja Yoga. It's the royal path of mental focus and spiritual practice. All of these paths remind us that yoga can meet different people in different ways. Some come from movement, devotion, study, service, meditation, sacred sound, and rest. The cool thing is that there's not just one doorway, there's many doorways into yoga. And another important text in yoga histories is Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. These are a collection of short teachings that outline a path of yoga centered on calming the fluctuations of the mind and moving towards spiritual liberation. It's one of the most well known and practiced and read books in yoga teacher training. We do read and review all of these, but these are ones that we take away with us. It's the 8 limbs of yoga. We talk about this more in day 3, but for now, I just kind of want to introduce you to the 8 limbs and how it is a spiritual map. The limbs are yama, ethical restraints, niyama, personal observances. So looking at who we are on the inside and out, spiritually, our character. Then the third one is asana. That is where posture, the movement enters. Pranayama is the breath work. Pratyahari is turning inward. It is a looking at who you are and beginning to disconnect from outcomes. Dhyana is meditation. Oh, I've skipped dharana. Concentration. Yeah, see, I need to work on that one a little bit. Dhyana then, and then samadhi. It's the union of spiritual absorption. Some people will say nirvana. And what's important about this is that only one of these limbs is actually physical posture. Only one, and that tells us something very important. Yoga was never meant to be only about the body. The body matters and it's sacred. It's part of the practice, but yoga's about ethics and breath work and awareness and meditation and spiritual union. And one of the reasons that I keep saying that yoga is more than movement, because historically and spiritually, yoga's been a much wider path. Now, over time, another major development in yoga was Hatha Yoga. Now, in America, sometimes you'll hear Hatha, but the teachers that I have said that it is pronounced Hatha, not no H, H-A-T, Hatha. And this one does place more emphasis on the body, the breath, the physical practice. And it's kind of where some of the physical yoga practices that many people recognize today. It includes postures and breath work and purification practices and energy awareness and preparation for meditation. You do yoga so that you can sit and meditate for longer time. The goal was not for physical fitness, it's preparing your body for a spiritual awakening. The breath is a life force, prana. If you're a practitioner of Reiki, ki and prana, the same life force. Tai chi, prana. So these energy practices are used to awaken awareness. And this is where we begin to see the development of yoga practices that involve more of the physical postures. And later, yoga continued to evolve. There's teachers and lineages and spiritual communities and practitioners that have carried yoga forward in many different ways. Eventually, yoga began to move into the modern world as it spread beyond India. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, Indian teachers began sharing their yogic philosophy and practice with people all over the world. And over time, it became more widely known, especially in Europe and the United States. But it changed. In many Western settings, yoga became strongly associated with the physical postures and the fitness and the flexibility. Yoga studios and classes and mats and clothing and styles became part of a large modern yoga culture. And there's nothing wrong with people being introduced to yoga through movement. Movement can be a beautiful doorway, but many people first experience yoga because they want less stress, more flexibility, and more strength, or even more peace. And that's a valid beginning, but the challenge is that when yoga is reduced only to exercise, we lose its depth. We lose the philosophy and the spiritual teachings and the ethical foundations, and we lose the sacred roots. The connection to meditation, devotion, and self study and liberation is gone. And that's why it's important to honor yoga's origins, especially for those of us in the West. We need to approach yoga with respect and humility. Yoga comes from India. It comes from a deep cultural, spiritual, and philosophical context. It was carried by sages and teachers and communities and wisdom keepers over generations. So, part of practicing yoga with integrity is remembering that we're receiving something ancient and sacred. We don't own this, we are students of it. And that means that we practice with gratitude. We learn where yoga comes from. We respect the culture and traditions connected to it. We credit the sources and the teachers. And we avoid treating yoga as a trend or a performance. We deepen beyond the physical. Remember also that yoga isn't something that we consume. We enter into a relationship with it. We practice. Practice doesn't mean perfection. And it's something that we evolve over time. Now, that is an important part of practicing yoga without appropriation. Cultural appropriation happens when sacred practices are taken out of context. They're commercialized, renamed, stripped of their origins, and used without respect to the culture they come from. So, how do we practice with more respect? Well, with cultural appreciation. We learn and we listen, we credit, We stay humble. We study the roots. We don't pretend that yoga began with this fitness culture. And we avoid using sacred symbols or mantras or even practices casually without understanding what they mean. We honor the teachers and traditions. For example, my teacher is Mary. Her teacher was Desikar, and then from there, Krishnamacharya, and then we're a lineage of Shivites, Shiva, Lord Shiva. We are of the Thirumalar tradition. Thirumalar's Ashtanga therapeutic yoga. And we study this. We learn the traditions. It is hard. I'm not a master at it. I know our lineage. I know the honors of honoring our body. My tradition, my lineage is exactly what I needed. It is taking your body and honoring it and doing what you can and practice and love yourself. And we practice with awareness. We practice and are willing to keep learning. We honor the roots and we're also honest about where we are in our own journey. So for me, all of this is part of my spiritual practice because yoga is not only what happens on the mat. It's about relationship to your body and your breath and your lineage and the culture and the people and traditions who came before us. So this brings us to today's spiritual reflection. Yoga's ancient wisdom that invites us into presence, discipline, and a sacred relationship. I love that idea of a sacred relationship because it's a relationship with everything. It is mind, body, soul, true spiritual path, ancestors, teachers, tradition, text, animals, lineages, a river, a tree. We know, for example, that the river is ancient. And when we know that, we approach it differently. We approach it with gratitude and humility. We don't have to know everything in order to begin. Yeah, we can begin with respect. So today, as we reflect on the gentle history of yoga, I invite you to ask yourself, what part of yoga's history feels most meaningful or surprising to you? Most people know that it's rooted in ancient India. Some do not. Maybe it's the sacred texts like the Vedas, Upanishads, the Gita, and the Sutras. Maybe a reminder that yoga was originally much more focused on meditation and discipline than poses or asanas. Maybe you weren't aware of the passive yoga, action and devotion, wisdom, meditation, breath work. Or maybe it's the idea that yoga asks us to practice with humility. Yoga is meditation, breath work, mantra, yoga nidra. It's something that is older and deeper than yourself. And there's beauty in that. There's responsibility and sacredness in this idea. Before we close, I want to invite you to do just a simple gratitude practice. This can be done seated, standing, or laying down. And again, if you're driving, wait till later. Simply place one hand on your heart and one on your belly. Take a slow breath in and gently release. One more time, breathe in and release. Now, softly offer a gratitude, such as thank you to the teachers, the wisdom keepers, their traditions, the ancestors of yoga, the sacred text, to the divine, to the body, the breath. And let yourself be held by this long river of wisdom that carried yoga forward. So, as the yoga prompt, you may want to write about what part of yoga's history feels most meaningful or surprising. Talk about what you learned today, what shocked you, maybe what challenged you, and what you want to study more. I will eventually be opening a yoga teacher training school. Online, in person, hybrid, don't know yet. I am waiting for the downloads, the messages to come. And I want you to know that yoga is for everyone. Yoga teacher training is not necessarily training to teach yoga to other people. It is this studies, it is the in-depth studies of yoga wisdom, of yoga history, of honoring your body and learning what your body needs. So I want to thank you for joining me for day 2 of International Week of Yoga. Remember that I am at Cosmic Connections today. I will be offering some coupon codes if you want to do 30 or 45-minute session of yoga poses, meditation, studies, text studies, questions, or anything else like that. And then at 6 o'clock, I will be doing a summer solstice class where we will be doing some sun salutations. However, sun salutations can be done in a chair, on the floor, standing up. And I hope you can join me. That class is $35. It's from 6 to 7:30 to Monday night, tonight when you're listening. And I want you to come back tomorrow. We're going to explore the 8 limbs of yoga and how it's a spiritual map for living yoga both on and off the mat. But until then, I just want you to practice with gratitude. May you move with reverence. May you breathe with awesomeness. And may you remember that yoga is ancient wisdom inviting you into presence and a sacred relationship. Goodbye for now.